do a vocal warm-up? Hi, everybody. How's it going? Day one's down. How'd it go? Thumbs up? Good? Good, 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 good. Glad to hear it. My name's David Simpson. I'm the program director here. My pronouns are he, him. We're glad you're here. One of my favorite parts of the summer is that several nights a week, Monday and Tuesday this week, we have faculty talks where our faculty dazzle us with readings and talks about their work and process, and the Q&As afterwards. You're going to see for yourself tonight. Tonight we're going to hear from playwright Candace Perry. Woo! And painter Joe Diggs. They're going to give their presentations, and afterwards we'll do a joint Q&A up here. But first of all, a couple of items of housekeeping. Books by this week's and this year's faculty are at the back and in the bookstore in the gallery. So please take a look. There's some really great finds back there, along with some wonderful, beautiful, totally affordable Falk merch. So if you want a t-shirt or a mug or a tote, the totes are nice. Check them out at the back. The Hudson D. Walker Gallery will be open after the event. If you haven't checked out the show that's in there right now, Everyone We Know Is Here is what it's called. It's a show of all former Falk Fellows, all the work, and the proceeds go to benefit our programming as well as the artists. So please be sure to check it out after the event tonight. Let's see what's up. Big shout out to East End Books for managing our bookstore. They do a great job. We are also grateful to Cape Cod 5 Savings Bank for their generous support of our public programming. Local bank. The restrooms are down the hall on the left if you need them. The sign-up sheet for Thursday night's student reading is right on that table. And I strongly encourage you for sharing your work is really wonderful. It's a great hometown advantage. So if you haven't signed up, please consider doing so. You won't be sorry. And finally, please silence your cell phones. So we're going to start with visual artist Joe Diggs. And to introduce him, I'd like to invite one of his students, Brandon King, up to the stage. Brandon.
Peace, everybody. My name is Brandon King, all lowercase, he, him pronouns. So I'm here to introduce my teacher. He's born in Croix Chapeau. I think I said it right. That's in France. He's a military brat, so I think moved around a bunch, but spent a lot of his time in Massachusetts. Was raised there. Got his BFA from Southeastern Massachusetts University. His MFA from Massachusetts College of Art and Design. He's an instructor at the Cotuit Center for the Arts and an instructor with the Department of Youth Services working with incarcerated youth. He served as the vice president of an NAACP annual fashion show, and he's led multiple programs through the NAWCET Fellowship. He's currently honored as a artist in residence with the Cape Cod Community College, and his artwork is in private collections around the globe. And I think, so for me, I looked through the book of like all the different classes, and Joe's class really stood out to me, I think a lot because of, connections that I felt like are similar. My father was in the Navy. He grew up in Massachusetts. He's from Barbados originally. I have cousins that grew up in Virginia that are also military brats, born in Germany and born in Hawaii. So I just thought, just on a personal level, that there would be some synergy. And I have to say, like, looking at his the painting, I guess the one painting y'all chose to put on the website, and hearing the description of the class, it made me kind of think about painting in a different way. I've been a painter for a while, but I feel like I've been blocked as a painter because I feel like I plan too much. And I've been exploring what he's been sharing in his class around following your intuition and following your gut and letting your gut decide. And I feel like I've been able to do that in other mediums, but it's really cool to come back to art, back to painting, because I feel like a lot of times I'm chasing my former self, or I'm competing with my former self, and that blocks me from making anything new. And so yeah, I'm super excited to invite him up to the stage. Even his work with incarcerated youth. I have a brother that's incarcerated, and so thinking about art and creativity as ways to lift people's spirits, and even kind of you can be free, you know, for a second, like you can be in your mind. I think those things are really powerful and really helpful, and I'm really excited to hear what he has to share with us today. Thank you.
All right. I don't know where to go after that. That was wonderful. Thank you, Brandon. I'm looking forward to a great week with you. I already had a great day with you. I'd like to say, first of all, thank you to the Fine Art Work Center and everybody, because this is like a dream come true. It's like I was out there like one of you guys, and now I'm up here like that guy who I watched, which is just unbelievable. So here we are. We're going to play that bean footage. Boom. There we go. You know, white people stayed here, white people stayed there, you know. But white people did come and visit, stay at our place as well. So, yeah, that's what Grandpa did. That's what I do. I do the same thing, just 50 years later. The bottom line is that's the reason why I called it generations, is because it's from generations, from, you know, one person to the next. It's third generation running this business. You know, Micah's Pond Summer Rentals. There was only certain places where people of color could actually travel and feel comfortable. We're researching to see where Micah's Pond was. It was in a book. We're not sure if it's the actual Green Book or something that was similar to it. As part of his many businesses that he developed, he also had a place called Joe's Twin Villa. Joe's Twin Villa was a bar, really kind of a meeting place. And it was actually the place where Grandpa was most of his time. And so I knew after 4 o'clock every day I could go and visit him at Joe's. So it was a local hangout, a place where workers really met. It was really a workers kind of a bar. And then the interior of Joe's, this is the interior of the place. It was one of the only places you could go and cut a rug, really get down with some good dancing. So the music was there, and so the arches were part of the interior. So this is going low at Joe's. And the neat part is there's a character here jumping, and for a long time, we didn't allow anybody to jump because we had records. And back in the record days, they had the DJ playing on the records, and this is the DJ stand. This is Weepin' Willie, but this is the DJ stand behind him. And so there was a sign that said no jumping while dancing. And it's, you know, just because people jumped, and the records would skip. Weepin' Willie was the elder statesman of the blues in Boston. He was quite the showman. This is the interior of Joe's. The gold is the interior of Joe. This piece is called "Can I Use the Ladies' Room?" So it was one of the tricks that a lot of ladies tried to use at the time just to get in. There'd be a line of 45 minutes to get into the joint, and so we'd open the door. Somebody would knock on the door, and we'd open up and say, "Can I use the ladies' room?" And of course, you'd either have to have somebody escort them to the ladies' room or just say no, which was always difficult. So I decided to come up with a little piece with it. This is part of my Chalkline Baller series. The series started because I saw a photograph in my father's yearbook of this player, Mr. Jones, he played in a league down in Virginia. So I was a flight attendant with U.S. Airways, and I was getting my hair cut in a place called The Hill in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I was talking to the barber, and I was like, wow, these buildings all around you are really gorgeous old buildings. And the neighborhood's kind of falling apart. And he's like, yeah, back in the day when the Negro Leagues were here, we had 2 teams. And that basically was our economy. So the minority economy was based on the Negro Leagues. And that just kept on spinning in my mind. And about a couple of years later, I came home and I grabbed that photograph again. And I had been playing with the idea of using x-rays. And I thought, x-rays are perfect for a further evaluation. You want to look deeper into it. You want to understand what these are, what's going on inside. So I thought, well, great. What really happened with that economy was, when Jackie Robinson in 47 or whatever it was, became a Major League Baseball player, it collapsed the whole economy of all the Negro League. So all that money just went right out of Black America. And then you'd think, well, that's great because now they're going into the major leagues and they'll make big money. Well, even to this day, I think the league is about 5.5% Black. The rest of the people of color are all from the Latino leagues. So they're not Black Americans. They're actually, men of color, no doubt, which is great to see. But the economy never was brought back into the Black community. So after further evaluation, you realize that we got screwed with brass tacks. This is called rooster's teeth in tile. The idea was really I was playing with the idea of x-rays in general, and for this, just to look deeper into it. And the idea of these teeth came to me with the idea of a rooster protecting, its hens. So it's all about protection and strength. And so I like the teeth are strong and the roosters are protecting the roost. This is very exciting to be able to hang this the way that we have, because it reminds me of how my studio is set up. A lot of times what I do is I'll work these images, and then I'll put images on top of images for a whole bunch of reasons, actually. The layering aspect, it takes me from one subject matter to the next, but also they're all involved with what I'm dealing with at the time. So the major piece is about COVID in the background. And so these other pieces were developed, around the same time, so this was developed first, and then these were put on top of them afterwards. So it was very cool to be able to take, a situation that I was talking about in the past with my grandmother, and then put it into what we're dealing with, the problems that I'm dealing with right now with COVID and racism and inequalities and that kind of stuff, to these just go into a total abstracted world of just kind of dealing with space, dealing with time, dealing with tension, stress. So there's a lot of stress and tension in these pieces. That's the reason why it's done. The idea is to be able to develop this into a point where it becomes a piece of art in itself, with just layers of paintings on top of paintings. This is a piece that I've worked on. It's about my mom, actually. She just passed away in December. And so I wanted to do a piece of, her maiden name is Rose, and so it was based on roses originally, and then I was just like, she's all flowers. So I just decided to paint flowers, and then I started adding things that I wanted to kind of like just hardscapes inside the flowers, to just kind of have a little space of me in between her. And that's kind of where this is going. It's just all movements about mom. And what's really nice in the show is I was able to put the piece that I did about her mother and her passing. This is a piece. It's called "She Danced on the Mystic," where my grandmother, when she passed away, she asked to cast her body into the Mystic River, and so she kind of floated around the Mystic River before she disappeared. So I did this piece to memorialize her life. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. So that little film was when I was in the residency at the community college, and as you can see, all the names. I want to thank all those people, and it was a wonderful experience. This part is just home and family. This is going to be just a quick slide show to show pictures of mom and dad, and the people who really matter the most. This experience is truly the experience that I'm having here with new students and having the opportunity to speak and to teach on something that actually has saved my life. I think it's so important that other people, having the opportunity to give the same opportunity to other people. So, even when I teach my incarcerated youth, when they think that the times are the worst, I tell them that the times this could be the best. It's up to you. We live trapped in our own minds. So once you get outside of yourself, anything's possible. So, and these are the people. These are the people who made it possible for me. The guy on the right's my father. He was a total character. I mean, total character. As we were told earlier, I'm an Army brat who lived in Waco, Texas, who lived out in Hawaii and lived in Germany. And so we lived in similar places. And my father is from Virginia. So, Brandon, we just have a lot in common. And he was a party animal. And that's his mother-in-law next to him, and that's my sister Sharon in her arms, and she was a party animal. So we had these cottages, like I said, and they would, the family would show up, and pinochle would start, and the scotch would get flowing, and you don't understand unless you've been a part of something like that. It's a beautiful thing. It was great family outings. I miss the fact that the generations have passed us by and we no longer are doing this. This is my mother. She's a rose, obviously. These are just pictures of her graduation that I reconfigured into a little collage. This is the same lady that you saw in the first photograph, but this is my other grandfather. So this is Chester Rose, and he was introduced to me late in life. My grandmother, as I said, was quite a party woman, and she was wonderful. She was a seamstress. She had 3 husbands, and he was the only one that survived. And she would say that, I buried 2 of them. And this is my painting of her. So when we talk about influences, I've been fortunate in so many ways. I was influenced by Terry Lynn Carrington. I've known Terry my whole life. I've known Terry, I should say, her whole life, because I'm a little older. If you don't know who she is, you should know who she is. She was a child prodigy at Berkeley. At 10 years old, I went to see her perform, I think it's Story Time or something like that in New York City, where she was playing with Max Roach, Buddy Rich, you name it. She played with them, and at 12 years old, the drums were bigger than her. And I remember one Thanksgiving, we're sitting there, and she's saying, I got to go and practice. And I'm like, practice? We're all kids. I'm like 12. She's like 8. I'm like, what are you talking about, practice? We're going to eat some turkey. We're going to go out to the Duggar Park. We're going to run around and play some kickball. What are you doing? She says, no, I'm going home to practice. And I was like, what the hell's wrong with you? That's her now. She is incredible. If you get a chance to listen to her music, I think she's a 7-time Grammy or award winner at this point. She tends to win awards after awards, and it's all her arrangements. It's everything she does. She's the whole mechanic. And this is the show that she has. There's a show going on right now. It's at Emerson College. It closes this coming Friday. And these are the pieces that I was fortunate enough to put on it. So the piece in the middle and down the bottom is called Gold Standards. It was to explain the actual way that this piece came together is pretty much is my process. My brother came over with a piano one day and said, I need a place to store the piano for a little while. Could you store it for me? And I'm like, dude, I don't want it. And he's like, no, but I got you. I'm like, all right, you got me. All right, if it's here too long, it's gone. He's like, all right, great. So it was there too long and it got gone. And then these are actually asphalt shingles that are behind it. The asphalt shingles, I built a house on the property, and I was really hoping to move forward. I had this idea of grandeur of what I was going to build on the property. 2 years into living in the house, the shingles started falling off the roof. They're 30-year shingles, but they were these ICO shingles that are supposed to disintegrate in a certain amount of time. Well, mine just decided to do it a lot quicker. And so they're falling off, and at this point, I'm literally broke, right? And saying to myself, how am I going to ever reshingle this roof? Well, a buddy of mine whose father did framing gave him some gold leaf, and then he gave it to me. And I thought, well, if I put this gold over top of these shingles, then I might have a chance to sell something, and I can go ahead and get my roof. And I did. The pieces in the middle are actually more x-rays. The circles that you see that are aspiring up there are from a piece and it's still a continuing theme in my work. When James Byrd Jr. got dragged to death in Texas, Jasper, Texas, when I saw the photograph that they had shot for the article, it showed his chalk line body parts, because he was not one person. They dragged him to death, and there was just little tiny circles all the way down the road. So as I cried, I saw his body come together. So I took that power, I reframed it, and used it in a piece of artwork. So all my pain goes away. It's all, like I said, art saves us all. The Valadea Snow is the lady up front. In this process of learning about women and standards in jazz music, Terry Lynn once again just taught me opened up a whole new world for me. And when she did that, I started studying, like Louis Armstrong's wife, who actually did a lot of composing, and he got the fame, but she did the work. It went on and on. It's a huge group of women who have contributed to the jazz world, and getting that opportunity was just incredible for me, because now it's just sent me in another road. As an artist that's always been looking for his, for the other people who influenced him, the Jack Whittens of the world who have influenced me, I realized that these are people who no one's noticed because they haven't been put in their proper perspective of where they should be in history. So once I realized that they're there, I realized that I can be here too. And this is one of the other pieces. This was on the other side of it. This is Bells. So this is actually the song on Terry Lynn Carrington's social science piece. And Bells really talks about the way things should be and the way things are. So on the left is the theory, is the beauty of the red, white, and blue, the chance that we all have a chance that we can make it, that we can all pull ourselves up by the bootstraps and all that other stuff. And then the right side is like the more realistic world, that there's a bullseye on you, that there's a system that's in place, that there's a lot. This is a little darker than it is. It's really red, black, and green, and in each one of the panels, there's a little story behind each one of them. So that's the layering part of it all. This is the man I was named after. His name is Joe Gomes. If I think back on really like who charged me to make me, he was always like, you can do anything, not something, you can do anything. And he used to always say to me, this is all gonna be yours one day. This is all gonna be yours one day. And out of the 4 kids, I had an older brother who passed away very young, but out of the 3 of us that were still surviving, I think I'm the only one who actually took it to heart, because as soon as I had the opportunity to come back and run it, I was like, I'm doing the same things that he did at his age. So the pride of just being a Joe and doing what Joe Gomes did really made things happen. This is my grandmother. This is my father's mother, Travis, and she's the one who's actually from Virginia, grew up. Her family, a lot of the people actually passed. So we had a lot of very, very light complected black people who could pass as white. So it was a very interesting dynamic that would happen on every family get-together, where they would come in with gloves and stuff, and they're like, who the hell is that? And they spoke very proper and everything else, but the bottom line was they were one of us. So that's my story. I thank you very much for getting a couple of minutes, giving me the time to sit and talk and show you my life. And I hope that everybody has puts a little bit of good art in their life. Always keep it there.
I think we need to applaud Joe Diggs some more. Thank you, Joe. We're really glad you're here this week. And now I'd like to introduce one of Candace Perry's students who will introduce Candy. MC Kenny. Oops, not that.
Hello, I'm MC Kenny, and I'm so happy to be here to get a chance to introduce you to Candace Perry. The stats about Candace: Cape Cod playwright Candace Perry holds a BA from LSU and MSW from Tulane University, and she has written over 50 short and long plays that have been performed across the United States and Ireland. She's received the Kaplan Prize and Anne Ha Yam Fellowship and was the first Cape Cod Playwright Competition winner. In addition, she directed the 2022 Kaplan Playwriting Competition and has been a writer-in-residence for Eventide Theater, and Candace works as a clinical social worker and is committed to community activism. So that brings me to the point of why do Candace's plays? Because I have a saying, if you are really upset about something, you either, what are you going to do? Sit around and bitch about it, or are you going to do something about it? And that's what Candace does. She puts that activism into action into her plays. So that's what I responded to David when he asked me if I'd say something, and I said, well, this is great. You think that you've known someone for years, but in this bio, I realized that there's major gaps in my memory. And so I wanted to personalize it, and I said, wait a minute. Let's see, there's so many things, 50 plays. That's incredible. I said, just some of them. Misinformed sisters stuck in antebellum romanticism, but enlightened by a current POC owner, resident of their Tara. Or during the pandemic, she wrote a CIA agent couple with marital issues. She has in works a Dolly Parton tribute singer. It's immeasurable, all the creativity that she has with her plays. And if you have never seen them or heard them, you should, because you're in for a treat. And so we're so delighted that she's our instructor this year. She said she's not a teacher, but she's a born teacher. So actually, you're going to get a chance to listen to one of her plays coming right up. Right now, Sarah.
I am delighted to introduce Candace's play, Made in Heaven, a short play by Candace Perry. Characters: Marie Louise Benson, played by MC Kenny; Faye, Mrs. Eugene McBride, played by Candace Perry. Place: Heaven. Time: mid-1980s. Set: however you imagine heaven.
Welcome to heaven, where true love reigns. Yes, indeed, this is heaven, where every day is Valentine's Day, and you get to spend all eternity with your one true love. You know that expression? A match made in heaven? Oh, lots of songs got it right. Remember? Cheek to cheek. Heaven, I'm in heaven, and my heart beats so that I can hardly speak. La-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da. Well, You get the picture. Aren't you just tickled to death? I mean, to just find out how it is here. This is heaven. And I'm Mary Louise Benson, lately of Dothan, Alabama. God asked me to help out here. Sometimes folks don't appreciate the match they get, and God will ask of us, well, you see. Faye, honey, come on in.
Mrs. Eugene McBride, if you don't mind.
Oh, well, excuse me, Mrs. Eugene McBride. Well, why don't you just come on in here and just take a load off?
I beg your pardon.
Take a seat. Make yourself comfortable.
I do not need to take a seat. I need to take care of this.
Oh, yes, it did. We all need to take good care of our hot boxes.
I need this fixed immediately.
Excuse me, my
Immediately.
well, Miss McBride, if you don't mind me saying, but you look mighty peaked. You better sit. Lung cancer will do that. No, won't it? You take me and Jim Bob. That's my husband. Well, we went just like that. I told him, you can't make it through no light. It's already yellow 2 blocks away. But did he listen to me? No, ma'am. He just plowed right on through that light, smack dab into the broadside of that truck. The last thing I saw was G.O.D.
You saw the Almighty at the moment of death.
No, G.O.D. Guaranteed overnight delivery. There were big black letters printed on there in red and black. Just like Jim Bob says, it's like beating a Budweiser truck. I mean, who wants their last living thought to be, this Bud's for you? Yeah. Oh, no offense, Miss McBride, but you seem a little short in the sense of humor department. Where is Henry himself? He's got my...
He is not my Henry.
Well, didn't you used to say, my Henry, while he can make my camellias bloom in the desert?
Henry was my yard man, not this.
Hey now. Well, you don't need to pitch no fit.
I can assure you, I have never pitched a fit in my life. I have always conducted myself like a perfect lady. There is simply no logical explanation for this preposterous mistake. I cannot spend eternity with my yard man. Henry is a Negro. I am Mrs. Eugene McBride of the Montgomery McBrides. I must be matched to Mr. Eugene McBride.
I can't do that.
Why not?
Gene was matched to Randy Forrest.
Page 3.
Oops. I'm telling you, things are different in heaven. Oh, I'm sorry, Miss McBride. I'll be on course now.
Why not?
Don't you know the first thing about matching? The angels explained it all in the orientation.
I assumed orientation was for those whose religious training was lacking.
Well, matching rules require only 2 things. You had to have known each other and had your deaths within a year. You know those sweet little couples who've been together forever and then one of them dies and the other, in perfect health it seems, goes before the year's out? Those are heaven matches.
I remained a widow for many, many years.
But you had your Henry all the time till he passed over early this year. Don't you see? Heaven is about true love, not all the trappings we knew back there.
I would hardly call a marriage which was officiated by the bishop of the Southern District of the Episcopal Church to be a trapping. I insist on seeing my husband.
I don't know how to break this news to you, Miss McBride.
Oh, no. You don't mean to tell me Eugene isn't here? I mean, surely God is not a stickler for church attendance.
I didn't say anything about him not being here.
Then what in the name of God are you prattling on about?
Gene, Mr. McBride got matched to someone else a long time ago.
Who? He gave me his Kappa Alpha pen our sophomore year. I was his first girlfriend, the only woman in his life.
Ooh, spoiler. Right. Gene was matched to Randy Forrest.
Oh, no. Don't you see? This is all wrong. The only Randy my husband knew was a man he went fishing with down on Dolphin Island. Now, where is my Eugene?
I think you better take that seat, Miss McBride. Gene's been matched to that Randy Forrest.
You don't mean to tell me that my husband is spending eternity in the company of another man?
Yes, ma'am. Your Gene and his Randy have been together ever since the boating accident. God decided to bring them to heaven together, and it just didn't seem right to keep them apart.
But I was his wife.
And nobody's saying that you didn't give it your best shot. You all could just still be friends. It's just, well, when it comes to eternal love, God knows best. And what God knew was that Gene and Randy belonged together.
Impossible. I cannot believe Eugene was capable of deceiving me so.
Well, Gene mostly deceived himself. Heaven doesn't have the prejudices we knew back there.
There is not a prejudiced bone in my body. I was married to Eugene. What God hath brought together, let no man put asunder. Doesn't that mean anything?
Exactly. What God has brought together, in your case, that would be you and Henry, and they put his name right in here in your heart box. And plenty of us do get it wrong, though. Don't open they're not open to what God has set right in front of them.
They. Who is this they you keep yapping about?
God.
God is a they.
Yes. Well, of course, God's a couple. You don't expect God to arrange for every creature except their own selves to be matched for all eternity, do you? Right here in Genesis. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness.
I need a cigarette. Eugene forbid me to smoke. Said it wasn't ladylike.
Oh, and Henry?
First time. Oh, Henry. Henry would call me out back like there was a big emergency. Miss Fay, we got spots on our camellias. He'd call some such excuse. And he'd have my Winstons tucked in a bag of mulch. Once, Eugene came looking for me when Henry and I were working on the azalea beds, and there was no hiding the smoke wafting up. Before Eugene got to us, Henry just took the Winston out from my lips and stuck it in his own. Eugene was fit to be tied to see anyone in his employ smoking, and he threatened to fire Henry if he didn't remove the cigarette.
Did he?
No, don't you see? The cigarette had my lipstick on it, and if Henry removed it, Eugene would have known it was mine. I just said, Eugene McBride, I will thank you to let Henry and me be. I'm trying to teach him a lesson. He is to smoke this entire cigarette without removing it from his mouth. And at that, Henry commences to have a coughing fit, which satisfied Eugene that the lesson had been learned. Poor Henry. He fussed at me about that for years.
Well, Miss McBride, you just made my job a whole lot easier.
What do you mean?
Well, see, I'm supposed to help you remember, so you come to see how right this match is. All you got to do is just look at that expression on your own face when you talk about Henry.
That's ridiculous. Henry was a devoted employee, that is all.
Well, you've got to be mighty devoted to be willing to choke to death to help somebody out of trouble. Look, I know what you're going through.
I seriously doubt it.
No, really. I don't want this to get around, but Jim Bob wasn't who I thought I wanted to be with when I got here either.
But he's your husband.
Well, exactly. And he was a good husband. Well, if you don't count the driving. But in my heart of hearts, when I got here and found out that you get to spend eternity with your one true love, well, I was sure God would match me to Joe Namath.
Joe Namath?
Yeah, the football player. How can you be from Alabama and not know Joe Namath?
I've heard of him. You and he were well acquainted.
You bet. I met him back when he was quarterbacking for Bama. I was waitressing at the Sunken Donut, and he was crazy about our pineapple pie. I never missed a game when he was playing there. And when he went to pro, I watched him every single game that he was in there on the TV. Jim Bob and I, we even went to New York City once to see him play for the Jets.
You didn't really know Mr. Namath.
Did too. I finished every story the Enquirer ever printed about that man. And after I had my babies, I worried I might be too heavy for them. And I tried all kinds of diets. And when the Enquirer reported that he went out with Mama Cass, I was sure that she wasn't on a diet. So I figured he must like a full woman. You know, like they say, where there's meat, there's hate.
I knew it. I knew it. This is hell.
Well, what would ever give you that crazy notion?
Crazy notion? If it is not hell to listen to you prattle on about Joe Namath, these ridiculous matching rules, my husband and his boyfriend, well then, I'd like to know what is hell. And that outfit, and the very idea that Henry and I...
Oh, you don't like my outfit? My sister-in-law, Lorraine, bought it full price at Sears so I could be buried in something nice.
I did not mean to disparage your sister-in-law's taste, but you're wearing red.
Well, of course, because red is my favorite color. Lorraine wouldn't put me in some old gray thing that makes me look like a corpse. This is heaven, Miss McBride. We get another chance to do it right this time, like I did with Jim Bob. Do you need to rest for a while? Maybe I'm just throwing a bit too much at you for all at once.
No, I'm fine.
All right. So, like I was saying, when I got here, I thought I'd get Joe Namath. Now, the only problem was he wasn't dead yet. Well, that was just a detail. God could tell I was disappointed when I opened my heart box. So they arranged for me to meet one of the older Cupid counselors, and she helped me to see the truth.
What truth, dare I ask?
Remember when I told you that I was going to go to New York City to see Joe Namath play in person? Okay. Well, Jim Bob always said that he won some raffle for that trip. But Cupid showed me how sweet my husband. He took himself an extra job so I could see the Jets live. You know, Jim Bob never once complained about all the attention I paid to Joe Namath. Me sitting in front of the TV every Sunday afternoon, practically drooling. And Jim Bob, he'd take the kids fishing, all four of them, and he'd scoot them out of the house, and they'd grumble, and he'd say, no, just hush. We got to let your mama have some fun. And you don't say no thank you to a love like that. Devoted, you know, don't you see? Just like you and Henry.
I will concede that Henry was very loyal to me.
I meant your devotion to him. Don't you remember how it was during the bus boycott?
I try not to think of those horrible days.
Miss McBride, nobody's going to accuse you of being a freedom rider. But you did right by Henry. You carried him to and from work, even fit in some of his friends when you could.
I just picked him up on my way to do other errands.
You had errands every day for more than a year, clear over to the black side of Montgomery?
I saw no reason for Henry's family or my garden to suffer because our ridiculous city fathers couldn't change with the times.
You could have found another gardener.
You sound like Eugene. He had that hideous man, Luther Ingalls, to our home to try to talk some sense to me. Luther Ingalls was the secretary of the White Citizens Council, an organization which, in my opinion, was just the Klan dressed up in business suits. I told that buffoon I was not about to hire a yard man who didn't know better than to water the azaleas at high noon.
You were brave. You could have been arrested.
Well, it paid off. We won our first Garden of Distinction award that year, and every year after, until last, when I lost Henry. I over-pruned the Confederate jasmine. He was right about that. Every spring, we'd practically come to blows over how much to prune that jasmine.
But what if there had been no White Citizens Council, no KKK, no laws saying one kind of folks are different from another? And what if you lived in a world where Denzel Washington and Meg Ryan played lovers in romances?
But that was not the world Henry and I knew.
No, ma'am. But don't you see? It's changing.
But I remain a white woman, and Henry is a Negro man. I cannot imagine that we could...
Now, Faye, you got to let your heart do the imagining.
In my heart, I cannot imagine that Henry would want to spend eternity with me. I know Henry. He is proud and stubborn, and this match would be out of the question for him. How could he care for me when I was so
Stupid?
No, that is not the word I was seeking. Blind, perhaps.
Not colorblind. To tell you the truth, Henry wasn't too keen on the match at first either. Oh, you should have seen him when he opened his heart box and there was your name. Oh, Lord, that man does have some colorful language. Required 3 cupids and almost a full year to bring him around. You two had something going on in all that garden.
We never.
Well, not that, Faye, but you know something.
We did love that garden together. I believe I'll take back my heart box now, Marie Louise.
And you won't believe what he's got growing here. It's a miracle what that man can do with zinnias.
He'd let me help him.
Oh, he's waiting for you. Over there, through that garden gate.
I'm afraid I look like death warmed over.
Ooh. Let's just pinch you up a little. Yeah, here. Let's put some color in those cheeks of yours. There you go. Yeah. I hope you don't mind red.
Reminds me of Crimson Glory, our favorite rose. Henry, I'm coming.
Oh, at last my love has come along. And here we are in heaven, and you are mine at last.
Another round of applause for Candace Perry and MC Kenny. Marvelous. Do you want to come back up? And Joe, you want to come up? We're going to set you up for a Q&A. Right there. You get this one. Thank you.
Test.
Working? Working?
So the only thing we need is for you to, if you have a question, to wait for Sarah to come to you with a microphone so that people who are watching at home can hear your questions. Any questions for our faculty members?
Oh, there was one. So, oh, okay. I have a question for Joe.
Uh-oh. Please.
Joe, how about we do a play about women jazz people?
Ooh. That's
I was
interesting.
exciting to hear about that.
Thank you.
It was very exciting.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm gonna leave all that play stuff to you, and you're incredible. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, we'll leave the play stuff to the players, and I can paint about it.
You can paint about.
I
I
can
love
paint
that.
about it.
I
you
love
know,
that.
You know, but I think what I just saw was incredible, and I thank you both. I think, you know, to be able to do what you do and to be able to teach that is powerful.
Thank you. It was. Please forgive the wonkiness of the microphones and the script and and the heart box.
That was even better.
Was it okay? Good.
It made it all real. So. And how do you feel about your class and being here?
Oh wow, a fabulous class. I mean, it really is just a really fun group with a lot of variety and different ideas, and we've only had one day.
True.
How about you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I had more energy in this one day, and they just it just kept going. It just steamrolled the whole day. Just
So
rolled
what do you
on.
do in your class?
So far, we've been painting on paper bags.
Ooh.
Yeah, but the response has been really impressive. It really has. So you're a Southern girl by life. I mean,
Well, like
lived
you.
in, okay.
I'm a military brat.
Ah.
So when people say that question, where are you from?
Right.
Do you have 20 minutes? And I'll tell you,
exactly.
lived in 17 houses before I was 17. Born in Ohio, then moved to South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Texas, Virginia, Central America, back to Texas, back to Florida, college in Louisiana. And my mother's family from Mississippi insisted I was a Yankee.
Right. It's similar to me, but I've lived here on the Cape since 5th grade. And I'm sure that they'll say on my obituaries, though he's been here 99 out of his 100 years, he's still a wash ashore.
So not from here. And that, military, you're never from here, right?
Yes.
I have a question, since you're both military. Do you think that, I know I have some Army brat friends, and it's hard to make connections with friends. Do you think you dove into your art because that was the steady thing in your life?
Please.
That's a great question. I've never been asked that. I did not become a writer until well into adulthood. And I have a dear friend, and I live in Wellfleet, and somebody introduced me to her at the library, and they said, "This is Candace, she's a Southern writer." And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm not Southern, and I'm not a writer." And she said, "So you're a not Southern, not writer." Yeah, that's what I am, a not Southern, not writer. But I think the connection is, to me, about place.
Right.
Because you don't have a place. My husband, who's there in the audience, he can go back to where he was from, North Cambridge, and he can tell you the names of people who lived on this corner, and he can grumble about this building got moved 50 years ago. And he can tell you, turn left up here where Washington took command of the Continental Army. And, I mean, he just knows the place. And I don't have that. So maybe that's part of writing, is to know a place. I'm going to think about that some more. Thank you.
That's a great question. I'm opposite, So we moved. Dad was a character, and we moved every 2 years. He got in trouble every year. So we just was like, okay, where are we going now? And you get to the point where you could walk up to people and say, "Hi, my name is Joe," and I developed a certain amount of skill set that I could actually learn how to sit. I could navigate myself through the world just because of that. And I had my first date was with Effie Gooch in Bamberg, Germany. Her mom had 2 fingers. These are the little things that you remember as an Army brat. I mean, I remember being in Fort Hood in Waco, Texas. And we used to.
We both lived in Waco.
We both lived in Waco, and we used to chase the little DTE spraying machine. Yeah, we used to run behind them. Little did we know. That's why I probably have this thing growing out of the back of my neck. And then the other thing that was a lot of fun was to see. My older brother was a macho guy, and he would always say, "Okay, can you make it across the street barefooted? Can you make it? Can you make it?" And then he'd do it. And I'd go, I can do what he did. I'd get about halfway to the street and start freaking out. "Oh, brother." And he'd come out and scoop me
And
up.
the
And run
pavement
across
in Waco was about 109 degrees,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
End up with blisters on your feet
Yeah,
and the whole
yeah.
thing. But yeah, that's what Army life does to you. It's another way of kind of, being able to handle the world. And so it was a great education in itself. But it took me as an adult to realize how fortunate I am. And I think that happens, I don't know if that happened with you, because it's a whirlwind. Like the next thing you know, you're moving here, you're moving there, and you don't really get a chance to ever put it together until it stops. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I got a pretty cool education.
Yeah. My parents, my father I remember we lived in Abilene, Texas, and I was learning to drive, and I was 14. In Texas, you could get your license when you were 14. And the wheel, I'm not kidding, was like right here over my eyes. So it was a little tiny thing then. And we'd go out to the Sears Mall on a Saturday morning, and I had to merge. And he would say to me, Candace, get out there and mingle. Get out there and mingle. And that was kind of my mother's message, but Mom, I don't want to be in the Girl Scouts. You're going to go mingle. Right. You're going to go do whatever it takes to go be a part of things.
Yeah, you're always larger. It was always a larger group. It was always about, and I think that's the one thing that the service did teach, all of us, our family, was there was supposed to be the spot where we were all the same. Not that it was, but so we found ourselves, there was the Dewberries. We were in Schofield Barracks in Hawaii, and the Dewberries were from the South somewhere, and well, we lived right next to each other, and yeah, they didn't like us too much. And then one night, I guess one of the kids, they were doing their prayers, and the kid was on his knees and said, "And God bless Mrs. Diggs." And Mrs. Dewberry says, "Why are you God blessing Mrs. Diggs?" He said, "Because she's my other mother." And before it all ended, the Dewberries wanted us to move back to their where their home was, and she said to my mom, we're going to be in a double wide, but you'll be in the double wide right next to us. It's beautiful.
It's great.
So the Army did, the military did incredible things, even though a lot of times there's some other side of the story too. But it did some things.
I'm going to get the microphone.
So I'm wondering, you were both traveling so much. How did you get started making art, both of you? Candace, you said that the woman said to you, you introduced you as a playwright, as a writer. Did you? So you had written, or how did it go for both of you?
How did I become a writer?
Yeah.
Basically.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a social worker professionally. And in my late 30s, I think, I got this idea to start trying to write. I was going to write a book. My former husband and I were working together, and that was in the 80s. And it was real big for couples to work together, and it was a disaster for us. And he became a former husband.
Oh.
But at the time, I thought, I can make this work, and I wanted to write this book on how to work with the one you love. That was the name of it. And at the time, we lived in New Orleans, and I decided to teach a class on how to do it. So trying to figure out how do you make this work? And I had all these couples in my class, and all of them had this similar experience. They were practically, killing each other, working together. It was not this lovely arrangement that many people thought it might be. And I then went to the Bread Loaf Writers Conference because I wanted to learn more about writing. And I also had started writing some nonfiction articles. And when I went to Bread Loaf, it just opened my eyes to a world I didn't know. I'm almost ashamed to admit it, especially here. I had never been to a poetry reading through college, as a young adult, until I went there and heard people read. And I was just blown away. And just to see what people did with fiction. And the other piece of it is I realized my mother was always a storyteller. She was a wonderful storyteller. And I used to get frustrated with her because she would embellish. And I was very kind of practical and rigid. And I'd say, "Oh, Mother, that's not right." And she'd say, "Oh, Candace, it makes a better story." And so learning about that. And then after I started writing these nonfiction articles, then I started writing some work for children. And through all this, I always read plays. I always loved to read plays. And I eventually started writing them. And when I moved here to the Cape, I was very fortunate to find a community of people who were so welcoming. And some of them are in the audience here. Nice. Sally. And people who would do your work and just give it their all. And then I've also published a lot of, not a lot, but short stories too. And this place has been very instrumental in my life. I've taken a lot of classes here in a lot of genres and been very encouraged.
So for me, how I became where I am now was competition, really. I have an older brother. He was 3 years older than me, and I grew up in an athletic household. We were my next door neighbors, and we were all playing basketball and sports 24/7. And my brother was a good athlete, and so I was a decent athlete as well. And so I just wanted to beat him at anything. It's just really what it came down to. Just he was good at this, and I wanted to be better. So he was a senior, I was a freshman in high school, and I was looking for him. So if he wasn't in the gym, he was going to be in the art department. So I went to the art department, and Ed Bolton, this teacher, and I think a lot of people have this experience. It's their teachers that light something up on them. Well, he sat me down. He said, "Well, if your brother has talent, you have talent too." And he actually did a demo, and I have that demo still to this day. And I thought that I had done it. But when I look at the work to this day, I realize that he did the demo and then told me how great I was. And I thought, well, if I can beat my brother at anything, I'm on this. So I was connected 100% right from there. And then my brother passed away the next year. He got a car accident and passed away. And then I walked around as a zombie for 3 years. I just really didn't. Still wanted to do the athletic thing. I was still trying to push my sports as hard as I could. But there was a big hole. It was just a zombie. I was a mess. And I got to college, and professors pulled me all in the room one at a time and said, "Hey, what the hell are you doing? You got talent here. You think you're going to be a professional basketball player? Well, let me tell you something. You're playing Division III, pal. Not 2, not 1. You're playing 3. So you're a much better artist than you are ever at bouncing that basketball. So why don't you dedicate yourself to something?" And it wasn't that I didn't dedicate, because I was there. I was working as hard as I could, but I was doing it on my terms and my terms only. By that point, I was that sour kid that just just wanted to do his thing and really didn't give a damn what anybody else had to say. I'd lost the idol. I didn't really know where I was going, and they gave me a direction. At 47, I decided to come back to get my master's degree, and it was here in this building through Mass Art. And the same professors that I had told that I would, once they all brought me to their houses individually. I mean, this is how much they cared about me. They brought me to their houses and said, "You can have this." And as the cocky kid I was like, "Yeah, but I don't, yeah." Sorry, you got to live like this, but I don't want to live like this. I mean, and then there used to be a saying that those who teach, and those who don't teach do. I mean, so I was like, I ain't teaching, I'm doing. And 47 came around, and I'm still trying to make it happen. And I called Tony Moralia, who was one of my teachers, and I said to him, I promised you guys I would paint until I die, and I'm in a master's program. Would you be my mentor? And he said, "Yeah." Here I am today. So, teachers. Teachers did it.
Here's the teachers. I'd like to can I tell just one quick anecdote about a teacher here? Is this mic on? Are you hearing me okay? Yeah. So I was very fortunate to get to study with Grace Paley here many different times. And I didn't tell the faculty this last night, because we were in the room where I first heard her read. The sort of office room over there used to be kind of the place where people read. I mean, it was so much. It was like the hallway, and a few people could be in there. And I didn't know who she was. I think somehow we just showed up here to hear her. And I'll just never forget this. Here she was. I mean, she's award-winning, famous, wonderful writer. And she got up. She said, I can't do her voice. So she said, "I'm working on something new, and I don't know if it works, and I'm going to read it, and you all tell me, what you think." And I thought, wow, somebody who's like published in the big places can read and wants to hear what you think. And there was something about the permission in that. It was like, just do it. just go out there and do it and try it, and you'll find out if something works, something doesn't work. Come up and make yourself look ridiculous. That's all right, you know. Maybe people got to laugh. And she was just wonderful, wonderful to study with. I know everybody who ever studied with her has stories about her. And many, many other wonderful teachers here, too.